show where we're talking about Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. So, of course, it's going to be an awesome show. So, welcome into Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I am your host, Trace Girouard. Thank you so much for tuning in. No matter where you are or how you're watching, we always appreciate you. But we especially appreciate these 5 people right here because they were our first commenters on our video yesterday because they are a part of the Noti Gang. So Sally Seaball, shout out to you, Giggity, C-Bama, Nito, Colso Sporty, and my man Dwayne. I appreciate all of you for being the first commenter on yesterday's video, but if you want to be the first commenter on a future video and get a shout out, here is your 3-step plan. 1, you hit that sub button. It's big, it's red, it's free. Trust me, you're not going to regret it. Number 2, you got to click that little bell icon. I know it's kind of weird. It's like, why would I click 2 things? Well, if you hit the sub button, you're locked us in. If you hit the Noti bell, you're going to get a notification anytime we post a video. And then you need to make sure when you do click the Noti bell, you set it to the all option. So that way it's not just, oh, here's a video here and there. No, anytime we go live, anytime we put short form content, anytime we put out a daily video that we've been putting out multiple a day recently. So I need you to lock us in, subscribe today because the coverage ain't slowing down anytime soon. So let's discuss Chris Olave because the USA Today Touchdown Wire, they put out an article and they ranked out their top 32 wide receivers across the National Football League. And Chris Olave was among the rankings, which is pretty dang cool, but I was disappointed to not see Rashid Shaheed. And I can understand, by no means, I do not think that he is a top 32 wide receiver, but I just got to say this. I think he is a massive sleeper, and he wasn't a top 32 this year, but maybe next year we could be having a different conversation because every single year, feels like every single week, this guy gets better and better. And if you think he's a sleeper just like I do, help me out, hit that thumbs up icon like today's video. But let's go through the top 32 wide receivers according to USA Today. Calvin Ridley with the Tennessee Titans at number 32. I really like Jordan Addison. I think he's a talented wide receiver at 31. Diontae Johnson, Drake London, Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf to round out those guys. So a couple NFC South players, and so, guys you will see a couple times a season. But then you continue to the top 24 through 17, and that's where you find number 12, ranked number 21 according to USA Today. And I'm going to give you some thoughts here, but, just to add context, I do think T. Higgins is kind of high for the record. I think he's a good receiver, but 23 feels a little high. DeVonta Smith, I really like him. I think he's a very, very good wide receiver. Amari Cooper has been stellar with the Browns. Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, both are absolutely electric pieces to their offenses. Terry McLaurin at number 16, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, a couple Rams right there for you. And then you got Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans as a number 12 guy. You also have DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, the number 10 wide receiver. And then you have Stephon Diggs, who is now with the Houston Texans. And to round out the top 8, you got Brandon Ayuk. I like Brandon Ayuk. Number 8 does feel a little high. Maybe somewhere like 10, I could be a little bit more convinced he would be ranked there. But I do like him a lot. I think he's a very good wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7, Devontae Adams at 6, CeeDee Lamb at 5, and then you see the top 4 right there, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, and Jay Jetta. So what you think, Saints fans, before I give you my thoughts on Chris Olave ranking at number 21, I want you to grade their list. A, B, C, D, or F. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where would you make some changes? I want you to share your thoughts down below, and I'm going to be responding to you guys, so I want to hear what you have to say because I know Saints fans are so damn smart. So I will say this. I do believe that Chris Olave should at least be ranked closer to Garrett Wilson. And we're going to go through some numbers. We're going to go through some stats, and it might blow your mind. Chris Olave has been better. He is the better wide receiver out of the two in terms of production. And at the end of the day, you can say what you want about, hey, this player is, a more talented pass catcher. This guy is a better route runner. We can have that conversation on another day. But for right now, I'm looking at the production and say I'm box score hunting, say I won. If you're a Jets fan and you're mad at this, sorry about it. Our wide receiver 1 is better. The targets and receptions, it's pretty interesting to see there. Less targets and less receptions, but it's not by a wide margin in terms of the receptions. The yards favor number 12. The touchdowns favor New Orleans Saints wide receiver Chris Olave. The yards per catch favors Olave. And I did add this. It's not like a major metric to look at. First downs, it's not anything super major, but I kind of like to look at that of how many times are they extending drives and keeping drives alive and keeping the offense on the field. And Chris Olave ranked better there as well. And we can look at the advanced numbers too, the reception percentage. Chris Olave catches the ball at a higher rate. Garrett Wilson does have much better yards after catch, and I think Olave does need to improve that aspect of his game. There is a lot to say about underthrown balls, or, he catches the ball on a wild throw, diving catch, can't really do anything after that. So there is a little bit of, leeway there in the yards after catch, but Garrett Wilson definitely much better there. Drop percentage, Chris Olave is a little bit worse, but not by much. The average depth of target, Chris Olave has almost 4 whole more yards than Garrett Wilson. And average depth of target, if you don't know what that means, it's what's the average depth that the Saints quarterback is throwing the ball at Chris Olave? How far downfield is he? And he has that 14.3 yards average depth of target. And then the yards per route run, that means Chris Olave, every time he runs a route, he's going to get you about 2.23 yards, whereas Garrett Wilson is only at a 1.69. Very nice, though. The yearly production, side by side, I will say this. I think Garrett Wilson's been good. There's no doubt about it. Rookie season, he was better than Chris Olave. However, in the sophomore campaign, Chris Olave absolutely dusted him. 2 more touchdowns, almost 100 more yards, and almost 10 less receptions. Chris Olave is a really, really good wide receiver. Garrett Wilson, also a really, really good wide receiver. My whole point is, I think if you're going to say Garrett Wilson's a top 10 guy, I think it's a little ridiculous if you don't have Chris Olave at least in the top 15. That's just a little bit ridiculous to me. And call me a homer, say what you want. I don't really give a damn. I think Chris Olave is the better player. And I would rather roll with number 12 over Garrett Wilson. Why? Because I just like the player more. I think he's a better fit for the Saints. I think Garrett Wilson is a good wide receiver. This isn't a knock on him. This isn't me saying he stinks. This is me just saying, if you're going to say Garrett Wilson is a top 10 wide receiver, I feel like you got to at least put Chris Olave close to him, right? So I want you to answer this question for me. Who's the better out of the two? Type their jersey numbers down below. Number 12 for Chris Olave or number 5 for Garrett Wilson. Both are really good players. Both were really outstanding coming out of Ohio State, but it's time to put the two against each other. So let's take a look at the wide receiver depth chart. And I do think that Chris Olave is going to be really, really good this year. It's the first year that we have seen him schemed up and planned and game planned for and all that stuff throughout the offseason as he is the wide receiver 1. You look back in the history, Michael Thomas was around and you were expecting him to be healthy, or at least hoping he'd be healthy, so you kind of planned for him to be the wide receiver 1. But I do think A.T. Perry is going to be a really big breakout candidate. We're going to talk about Rashid Shaheed here in a second, but a couple other players I'm really excited about, Bub Means, and honestly, Cedric Wilson. Now, honesty hour here, Saints fans. I love Rashid Shaheed. I honestly pride myself in possibly being one of the biggest Rashid Shaheed fans across all of Saints media. I am absolutely obsessed with number 22. But I do not think that he is a top 32 wide receiver yet. But I do believe that he's due for a massive breakout season. And to be quite honest, it doesn't have to be Rashid Shaheed. It doesn't have to be Chris Olave. It doesn't have to be A.T. Perry. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I don't give a shit who takes over as the leading wide receiver. I don't care who has more catches, who gets more targets. I do not care. I just want to see my team's offense be successful. And if you're over here worried about, Chris Olave is a wide receiver 1, so he needs to have way more yards than A.T. Perry. Yeah, theoretically, yes. But if A.T. Perry is the hot hand and Chris Olave is double covered, why would you not throw it to Scary Perry? And it just makes no sense to me for people no, it has to be this one guy. No, the team's success is more important than the player's success. Now, coming up next, Rashid Shaheed, he's getting more praise, and I'm really excited to tell y'all all about that. But I have to encourage you and remind you to subscribe and hit the noti bell. If you're still watching, it means we're probably doing something right, or you probably hate it. So if you love us, subscribe so you get more content. If you hate it, subscribe so you can rip me in the comments every single video. But we're putting out daily coverage, multiple live shows a week, and a whole lot extra fun. I've been trying to ramp up my coverage, trying to up my game for you guys. So if you guys have been enjoying it, I hope you do subscribe if you haven't already and lock us in for free. Now, USA Today, they projected Rashid Shaheed as a breakout candidate for the New Orleans Saints. saying that number 22 was a big player for the Saints last year, earning Pro Bowl and All-Pro honors for his skills in the return game while catching 46 passes for 719 yards and scoring 5 touchdown receptions. But he's in line for an even heavier workload now that Klint Kubiak is taking over for Pete Carmichael on the headset. Look for Shaheed to draw more targets now that the receivers like Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, and Shaq Davis have moved on. He has game-breaking speed and a connection with Derek Carr that Klint Kubiak hopes to exploit. And I think that John Sigler, he wrote that part up for the New Orleans Saints breakout candidate, and I think he hit the nail on the head. And hot take alert, if you don't want hot takes, I don't know why you're watching this video. I think that Rashid Shaheed, if you put him and Tyreek Hill on a foot race, 100 yards, Rashid Shaheed's going to win. I genuinely believe that. The 40-yard dash time, it was like Tyreek Hill was a 4.29. Rashid Shaheed was like a 4.3. Short distance, probably the cheetah. But long distance, I'm going with Rashid Shaheed. I mean, this kid is lightning in a bottle. And to be quite honest, I think that his development is going to be fascinating. Not only is this kid dynamic with the ball in his hands, but he's dangerous and he's lethal and he can take the top off a defense at any given moment. And on top of that, if you can develop the route running ability just to clean it up, if you can develop the catching ability, you can beef him up and maybe get a little extra weight on him in terms of muscle, like I know that would slow him down, but I mean, the development, there's so many different ways you could go with this guy, and I'm super, super excited. I love that he's a speedster, and I think that he's going to cook in the new kickoff rule. And if you are unfamiliar with the new kickoff rule, we'll explain it to you here in just one moment. But I mean, Rashid Shaheed, he has such a good field vision. He's so smart, and he's so capable of finding open space and creating open space when he has the ball in his hands. I'm super pumped up to see him continue to develop and continue to turn into a dynamic, absolute playmaker that the National Football League entirely is fearing and respecting, to be quite honest. Now, here is the new kickoff rule. For you guys that don't necessarily know where it's coming from, it does come from the XFL/UFL. It kind of took that idea from them and stuff. But the big thing to note is you're going to have 2 return men back there rather than just the one. And you have an area that's the landing zone. That's from the back of the end zone to the front of the end zone to the 20-yard line. So the kickoff start line is going to be at the 40, and you're going to have about 5 to 10 yards in between the setup zone and the kickoff start line, and the ball has to land in the landing zone. Otherwise, it's going to be a penalty. And the idea is to encourage returns and encourage teams to make plays on special teams. And it's a lot safer of a way for Rashid Shaheed to do that, or whoever the kick returner is for whatever team. But I do think that Rashid Shaheed will absolutely dominate. I mean, he's going to have a better front line of defense. He's going to have another guy that he can use as a blocker. I think that Rashid Shaheed could have multiple kick return touchdowns. Honestly, I really do believe that. But I have to ask you this question because I got one. Would you buy a Rashid Shaheed jersey? Just give me a buy or a not in the comment section. I got the gold color rush. I mean, it just looks so fresh. I cannot wait to wear it on air with you guys and have some fun on one of our live shows. But y'all stay golden. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your noties. We'll see you next time.